New York City's police department's the largest one in the country, something like 35,000 NYPD officers on that force. Today, that department announced they're testing out a program to equip their officers with body cameras. Right now, it's just a small number of officers on the force who'll be wearing the cameras, recording their interactions with the public. But the hope is that soon, the entire force, tens of thousands of officers, will all be wearing cameras whenever they're on duty. Last week, you might remember the Denver police announcing their plans to equip all their officers with body cams. They even released this funny PSA-type video showing Denver's mayor wearing body cam glasses, asking citizens what they think about the program starting up in that city. Denver says they want to acquire about 800 cameras for their officers by the end of next year. In Ferguson, Missouri, officers on that city's police force have also started wearing body cameras that were donated to them recently. The Ferguson Police Department has been given 50 body cameras. The chief there says the officers are receptive to the cameras so far. And all of this quick movement across the country on this issue seems to be emanating from Ferguson, Missouri as its epicenter. It was in response to the shooting death of an unarmed teenager named Michael Brown by a Ferguson police officer last month that the country's attention suddenly focused on police use of force and police response to upset over their use of force. Those protests in Ferguson riveted the country. They also gave rise to some very concrete and specific calls for change. This is one of the very popular petitions on the White House We the People website right now. It's the petition for what they're calling a Mike Brown law. Currently has more than 150,000 signatures. That's way more than you need for the White House to respond to your petition. And what this petition calls for is a federal law that would require all state, county, and local police officers to wear body cameras. Quote, the law shall be made in an effort not only to deter police misconduct, but to remove all question from normally questionable police encounters. The senior senator from the great state of Missouri, Senator Claire McCaskill, has come out in support of that kind of a federal law regarding police use of body cameras. In the wake of Michael Brown's shooting death in Ferguson, Senator McCaskill said no local police department should receive any federal funds unless their officers are required to wear body cams. At the height of the tensions in Ferguson with those daily protests, those daily confrontations, when the local police response to the public outcry about Michael Brown's death sometimes looked more like a poorly planned military invasion than any sort of precision policing, Senator McCaskill went to Ferguson. She showed up and talked to people on the ground there. She said she was there because, as a senator from Missouri, she works for those protesters. They are her boss. She said she was there to make sure they had the space and safety and respect that they deserved as law-abiding citizens to make their voices heard and to protest peacefully in the streets. During that visit to Ferguson, Senator McCaskill also said that the militarized response from the local police force was counterproductive.
I think that last night the militarization of the response became more of the problem than any solution. I think it escalated the situation. It didn't de-escalate the situation. And so my goal has been to try to move out some of the military responses that they have been embracing and see if we can't get back to good, solid police work that keeps the protesters safe.
The day after the Senate comes back in session next week, Senator Claire McCaskill is going to be chairing a hearing on the militarization of local policing. She says she's going to be looking into federal programs that give away Defense Department equipment meant for war zones, basically as hand-me-downs to local American police departments all across the country. The Senate is back in session on Monday. Senator McCaskill's hearing is scheduled for Tuesday. Today, when the Department of Justice announced their new investigation into the whole Ferguson Police Department and potentially neighboring police departments in St. Louis County, Senator McCaskill weighed in there as well, calling the Justice Department investigation a step in the right direction. As a federal elected official who represents the state of Missouri and who has been both present there in Ferguson and weighing in on what should happen nationally in response to Ferguson, Senator Claire McCaskill has become the living embodiment of how the story of that killing of a teenager in that one Missouri town and the police response to that killing has become a national story with implications for all of us in the whole country. Joining us now for the interview tonight is Missouri Senator Claire McCaskill. Senator, thank you for being here.
It's great to be here.
You welcome the Justice Department investigation today. Is that because you think there is a clear problem in St. Louis County and in Ferguson that needs federal intervention to fix, or is it something else?
Well, there's a lack of trust right now. There is a palpable amount of cynicism
in the Ferguson community about their police department. And there is also a belief that the federal government, because historically the federal government has been the tip of the spear for many civil rights actions in our country. A lot of the reforms that we're proud of in this country didn't start at the state or local level. It was the enforcement by the federal government. So I think the federal government taking a really thorough look at policing practices, any patterns or plans that they have used that would indicate unfair treatment of some of their citizens, is just really important for catharsis in the community, for them to begin to gain trust again in what is a really important part of our country, and that is belief in the rule of law, that it's fair.
You're a former prosecutor. You've worked with law enforcement for a lot of your career. When you think about the way that local police are going to respond to something like that, do you have empathy for their resistance? They're feeling defensive about having outsiders coming in and telling them that they're doing it wrong. How do you think it's going to be received locally? We've obviously seen overt signs from the local community that they're welcoming it, but do you expect that there will be some resistance?
Well, I do think that there has been some lessons learned. If you look at Ferguson adopting the body cams so quickly, they didn't fight that. And frankly, body cams not only protect citizens from an overreach by police departments, they also protect police officers.
Right.
Because people may capture the end of a police altercation on camera and not capture the beginning of it, which might give it a whole nother tone or tenor. So, and also the county police department today agreed to a cooperative investigation with the Justice Department, asking the Justice Department to give them advice and analysis of their responses. And they, of course, were the police department that I believe got carried away on Tuesday and Wednesday night, which then ultimately led to an escalation, which ultimately led to some bad guys coming into the community when things really got complicated through the weekend. So I really think that Ferguson and the county police department have been pretty good about saying, come take a look at us and let's see if we are doing things wrong, which is positive.
In terms of the other policy response that you're very much involved in, other than the Justice Department, you're convening this hearing on the militarization issues. If police, it seems like this is the sort of thing that's very, very popular. I mean, anecdotally, it seems popular. I can imagine across some of the spectrum, ideologically, in Congress, there may be support from that from a lot of different kinds of legislators. But if police around the country decide that they really, really want their MRAPs and they really want their sound cannons and their AR-15s and all of this stuff, are you sort of prepared to fight with law enforcement about this? If you feel like, as a policy matter, it's better for these militarized tactics and pieces of equipment to be denied to police officers who want them?
I think we've got to look at, first of all, it's not just one program, it's three programs. And there's never really been the oversight on these programs, Rachel, that we should have. They are duplicating one another. In some instances, I believe we're going to be able to show that the Defense Department is giving them equipment that's expensive to maintain, and either Department of Homeland Security or Department of Justice is giving them the money to maintain it. The question is, how often is this equipment even being utilized?
Right.
And how much money is being wasted maintaining equipment that sits in a shed somewhere and has never really ever been used in any circumstances? So it's about, when is this equipment being used? How effective is it when it's been used? Is it really needed? And frankly, if we're going to prioritize helping local police departments with federal dollars, maybe we should start with the body cams.
Right.
And before they get anything else, we do the body cams, and we certainly make sure that if any of this equipment is ever going to be deployed in a domestic setting, there is adequate training and adequate thought process as to whether or not it is going to help a problem or hurt a problem. I don't want to de-arm police departments, but what we saw in Ferguson was not what we want in the United States of America. I think all of us were bothered by those images, and I'm determined to do something about that.
I think the body cams issue, when you see so many different types of police departments in different types of states and cities and different departments of different sizes, all moving in that direction, at least being willing to try it, it shows the widespread acceptance of that as a potential next step. Would you mind staying for just a moment? I have
Sure.
another couple things to ask you about, in particular this game-changing news out of Kansas, which might determine which party controls the Senate next year. No big deal. We'll be right back. Did I miss some sort of Sherman-esque statement from you about never running for president. I mean, is there any, obviously you're involved not only in Missouri issues, not only in federal issues, you're interested in what's going on with the Democratic more broadly and the Senate more broadly. Why shouldn't I be asking you if you're running for president?
You know, it's just kind of an awkward, awful question.
If I were you, I would be running. As the most, as the most centrist senator in the state, the way that you've run in Missouri, the issues that you have been interested in, the way that you've stepped into stuff that you didn't have to get involved in because you thought leadership was needed there. America's definitely ready for a woman nominee. If I were you, I'd be running. Why aren't you running?
I don't know. Sometimes people think me stepping in is more like a bull in a china shop, maybe. I don't know.
We're not a china shop. We're America.
I'm passionate, and I, you know, I'm not afraid to take a fight where I think it needs to be taken. But I also know what the process is. And besides that, I'm all in for the first woman president, Hillary Rodham Clinton. And so I want to be supporting her every way I know how. I think she'll be a terrific president. And I can't wait to say Madam President to Hillary Rodham Clinton.
If she has not declared that she's running.
Correct.
If she doesn't run, would you consider running?
Probably not. I think that I've seen up close what those things look like. And I think I can do a lot of good in other ways to serve the state I love and the country I love. But I think it's a hypothetical that we won't have to talk about, because I'll tell you what, if somebody wants to bet you on whether or not Hillary Clinton is a candidate for president, I'd take the bet.
All right. Well, that's fair enough. I can see how uncomfortable this makes you. I will tell you, if I had to pick one Democrat who I thought could definitely win a race for president, it would be you. That's in part because you're considerably more conservative than I am. But I think you could win if you ever wanted to run. Anyway, I'll just leave it there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Claire McCaskill.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
We'll be right back.